Hi everyone, how you doing? The meeting will begin in a few minutes, so we encourage anyone who's joining via Zoom to just take a quick and short survey using the QR code or link that's currently being displayed. And this can also be found in the Q&A section of the Zoom when we get there at the end. Good evening, everyone. How you doing? My name is Nick Fasano. I'm the Assistant Director of Government and Community Relations at the MTA Long Island Railroad. So welcome to the second of four public information sessions that we are hosting on Grand Central Madison and Long Island Railroad service to the new terminal. So these draft timetables were released on June 2nd, and they're available on our website. And our goal here is to ensure that all of our customers understand how Long Island Railroad service is going to change when this new plan launches at the end of the year. So tonight's session is going to be recorded and available on our website, and we'll have one additional information session after this, which is on Thursday, July 7th from 6 to 7 p.m., and we'll answer any questions that come up during the chat. And for those registered to participate, we just ask that you use the Q&A function on the Zoom app, and it will be added to our list, and the relevant subject matter expert will get back to you on it. So following next week's public information session, we are going to have a virtual public meeting, which is when the public has a chance to offer comments on the service plan, which is Wednesday, July 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. So I alluded to this a little earlier, but during tonight's session, you're going to hear from a few experts that are around the table with me here, and they're going to present on the benefits of this new terminal and service, the logic behind the schedules, and how customers can use the new terminal to plan travel opportunities in the New York City region. After the presentation, we're going to hang around for a little Q&A, and hopefully that can answer a lot of the questions that you have about the terminal and all the new service. And we're going to kick it off tonight with remarks from Rob Free, who's the Long Island Railroad Senior Vice President of Operations. He'll talk to us about service opportunities that are going to be provided by the completion of the terminal. Next, we'll hear from Rob Troop to my right, who is the Program Executive for Grand Central Madison, and he's going to discuss some construction highlights and showcase some of what the terminal looks like to you. Following Rob, we're going to have Jen, who's to my left. She's the terminal manager for Grand Central Madison. She's going to talk about the customer experience at the terminal, what amenities customers can expect, and some of the accessibility features there. And then we're going to have Charlie McKiernan to my right, who's the Chief Service Planning Officer, and he's going to explain some of the benefits of the service changes. And then we're going to have customer experience strategist Sunny Zhang to my left, who is going to talk about how customers can interact with our new timetables and give a brief presentation on that as well. And then following the presentation, to my immediate left, our Q&A will be moderated by John McCarthy, who's the Chief External Relations Officer for the MTA. And so, you know, we've received a lot of questions in advance of tonight's session, and we've been kicking around a few of them from last week's as well. So we're not going to be able to get to every one of them tonight. We're going to do our utmost, and we added some staff to ensure that we do so. But we're going to try to cover as many of the major themes that come up as we can. And that's why we encourage you to attend either next week's session or the public engagement session that we're going to have in approximately 2 weeks to make sure that whatever issue you have is covered. So with that, let me introduce Rob to my left, and he'll take it away.
Thank you, Nick. Good evening, everyone. I would like to touch on some of the monumental operational benefits that Grand Central Madison brings to the Long Island Railroad. The opening of Grand Central Madison is a generational event. We're not just opening a station, but a major terminal in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. But I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the impact of two other major projects, that provided significant benefits and that was strategically planned in order to enhance Grand Central Madison service. Ronkonkoma Branch Double Track and Mainline Third Track. The culmination of all these projects provide immense benefits to the railroad and most importantly to our customers. Some of these benefits may not be obvious, but I can assure you they are significant. Let's start with the reconstruction of Harold Interlocking, the busiest interlocking in North America. This reconstruction consisted of realignments of tracks, new switches, new signals, and most impactful, bypass tracks that will allow Amtrak trains to traverse Harold Interlocking without interfering with Long Island Railroad trains as they currently do. The net gain from all this work is increased throughput and speeds. Yards have been expanded, tracks extended, such as Mid-Suffolk Yard, Massapequa Pocket Track, and Great Neck Pocket Extension, all of which provide greater capacity to store equipment for increased service. Jamaica Station has a new platform, which will be in full use for Grand Central Madison service, and is absolutely vital to increasing the throughput in Jamaica. Now, I want to be clear about this because I know how important it is. The Long Island Railroad could not expand service to the level we currently are, and certainly not to the level planned once construction is completed in Harold Interlocking and the East River tunnels. We have a quick video illustrating the impacts of the current operation with connections and how the new service will improve this. Nick?
When we open Grand Central Madison, we'll be running 40% more trains than we are today. Most of those trains will go through Jamaica Station. To deliver this increase in service reliably, we've had to rethink how we move trains and people through the station. Currently, Jamaica operates with scheduled cross-platform connections. Trains wait for each other to arrive to make the connections. But that means when one train is late, the connecting train is also delayed, along with passengers who don't need to transfer. Meanwhile, other trains behind the connection must wait outside the station until a track is cleared. Those delays are felt throughout the system. Even when the connection is made, the trains can't all leave right away. Brooklyn-bound trains must wait for eastbound trains arriving on track 4 to pass first before they can move. Some Penn trains have to cross in front of each other. The new plan is designed to avoid this and keep trains and people moving. It replaces scheduled connections with transfer opportunities. Trains to and from Manhattan will let customers on and off, then depart promptly. For most people who aren't making a transfer, no time will be wasted. If you are transferring, not only are we running more trains, every train will stop, so the next train to your destination will be along in only a few minutes. To avoid congestion caused by Brooklyn trains having to cross in front of trains going the other way, most Brooklyn service will now operate as a shuttle between the separated tracks 11 and 12 at Jamaica and Atlantic Terminal. This also lets us boost Brooklyn service by 28%, with trains running roughly every 12 minutes at rush hour and 20 minutes at other times. All these changes add up to more efficient, reliable, and frequent service through Jamaica and across the entire system.
As you can see, we are currently relying on trains to arrive Jamaica at the same exact time as trains from other locations, some as far away as Montauk. It's not the most reliable system. Again, this is why the use of the new platform in Jamaica is essential to increasing throughput and running a reliable on-time service. There are also tremendous enhancements to service. We're operating train service to 2 major terminals in Midtown Manhattan, one on the west side, one on the east side. We are also increasing overall train service. We're increasing reverse commuting opportunities. We're improving the frequency of train service. We're offering customers more travel options, reducing commute times for many. Our service will be more reliable, which means getting to your destination on time. And resiliency of service, whether it be for operational disruptions or construction or maintenance work, such as the upcoming Amtrak East River Tunnel Rehabilitation Project. Now, when we talk about operational disruptions, there's a tendency to focus on major events, shutdown of service, significant delays, but we're also talking about everyday experiences which impact travel, whether it be a mechanical failure, a signal failure, medical assistance, police assistance, or even just a train operating behind schedule, which negatively impacts following trains by either slowing them down or even stopping to wait for the situation ahead to clear. With the increased infrastructure, following trains will now be able to continue to operate at normal speeds, thereby making the incident virtually invisible to customers on surrounding trains. It's important to understand resiliency of service and why it is so imperative. To simplify, resiliency means we can continue to operate trains during an event which impacts operations. As an example, using a major event, a shutdown or significant delays at a Penn Station, customers will now have the opportunity to commute out of Grand Central Madison, also located in Midtown Manhattan, only a short distance away. As you can see with these projects, they are not only planned or designed based on current operations, but future operations as well. There is a forward-looking mindset to plan for growth and the what-ifs. This allows the railroad to accommodate changing travel patterns, ridership increases, as well as continuing to provide train service to our customers during an event which would normally shut the railroad down. Our customers will not only be able to see, but feel the positive impacts. Thank you.
Great, Rob. Thanks a lot. So now let me introduce the other Rob Troop, who's the project executive for the new Grand Central Madison terminal. Rob?
Thank you, Nick. So with major construction wrapping up, we have hit the home stretch, and we're putting the finishing touches on the Grand Central Madison concourse, which you can see here. It is a new 700,000 square foot terminal, which runs alongside Madison Avenue from 43rd Street to 48th Street. Grand Central Madison will have 4 new entrances from Madison Avenue, as well as new entrances from the existing spaces of Grand Central Terminal and the passages at 45th and 47th Streets. The new terminal will have 8 tracks and 4 platforms on 2 new levels below the existing lower level of Grand Central Terminal. Tracks are fully separate from Metro North Railroad, and this ensures that neither railroad causes delays to the other. As elements are completed, we are working on the commissioning of new systems, the safety and security certifications, and training employees to become familiar with the territory so they can safely operate trains and perform maintenance on the infrastructure. During training, employees operate trains and walk in the tracks. They learn critical infrastructure, and this includes signals, switches, station configurations, and emergency egress. This training ensures the safe operation of trains and provides a seamless integration of the new service into the existing operation come opening day. We're also conducting operational simulations, emergency drills, and evaluating our evacuation procedures for both the terminal and the tunnel environment, which will include coordination with the FDNY and the MTA PD.
Great. Thank you so much, Rob. So then next, we're going to have Jen, who is our terminal manager for Grand Central Madison. So Jen, take it away.
Thank you, Nick and Rob. Every time I look at these construction photos, I'm always amazed at how far we've come so far. It's just, this is phenomenal. You know, as New Yorkers, we have the best city in the world and the most expansive and complex transit system in the country. And as a representative of the Long Island Railroad Stations Department, we're so excited to welcome you to this monumental and historic initiative, Grand Central Madison. From a design approach on the concourse level and carried throughout our mezzanine, there are 4 identifiable cross-street alignments representing 45th to 48th Streets. Each wellway connecting the 2 floors are categorized by unique color schemes carried throughout the terrazzo floor and glass tiles, and are representative of different aspects from nature: grass, sky, twilight, and ocean. On the concourse, the street number for each node is beautifully depicted in the terrazzo inlay flooring. The entire terminal, it really is quite spectacular. As some of you may know, this expansive terminal was constructed deep into bedrock. 17 escalators serve between the concourse and the mezzanine from 45th to 48th Street on a 2-minute vertical transportation ride. From the mezzanine to the upper and lower caverns, there were 16 escalators spanning 4 platforms, elevators from the concourse to Metro North's areas, and elevators from the concourse to the mezzanine. For our customers, the ticket office personnel will be available to answer questions and support ticket sales at our ticket office located adjacent to the public restrooms and MTA police. Ambassadors will be available to assist customers with mobility needs through our Long Island Railroad Care program, as well as to provide information and wayfinding. We will work closely with our partners at Metro-North Railroad to help our customers to get to where they need to go, from Manhattan to Montauk, Port Chester to Port Jefferson, Riverdale to Riverhead, throughout the 5 boroughs and places abroad and beyond. We look forward to moving people in a moving way. Our customer amenities include a ticketed waiting room featuring a seating area, charging capabilities, a dedicated customer service office, family restroom, and a mother's lactation room. And to further the experience, customers will have the ability to retrieve their lost and found items turned into Grand Central Madison before they are sent to our Central Lost and Found office in Penn Station. At opening, we'll have a reduced number of ticket vending machines, but rest assured, more are slated for the future, providing additional opportunities for customers traversing from the concourse to mezzanine levels. While there's lots to do and see in this neighborhood of Manhattan, our Grand Central Madison concourse will feature a photography exhibit, mosaic art, and digital displays, coupled with future retail opportunities that will add to our customers' overall experience. We look forward to welcoming you soon as Grand Central Service opens a world to explore, connecting Long Islanders to Manhattan, Connecticut, the beautiful Hudson region, while conversely opening a new avenue for folks to explore Long Island's beautiful beaches, vineyards, and diverse communities. And we can't wait to see you. Thanks, Nick.
Great, Jen. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so next up is Charlie McKiernan, who's our Chief Service Planning Officer at the Long Island Railroad, and he's going to run us through the new schedules and how we built them. Charlie?
Thanks, Nick. As ridership began its recovery after the height of COVID reductions, we began to see some new patterns emerging, with the peak periods becoming somewhat flatter and less concentrated, and a move toward higher ridership in the very early parts of the peak and shoulder peak periods. Ridership became heavier between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. and between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m. Additionally, midday, evening, and weekend ridership is quickly rising. Our new schedules emphasize these patterns with more robust opportunities during these periods than we had in the past. Along with those unexpected changes to commuting patterns as the workplace evolved due to COVID, there was also significant research and surveying that went into the development of the service plan. Ridership surveys and geocoding showed us that about 45% of our ridership was destined for the east side of Manhattan, making Grand Central the preferred terminal for those customers. In addition to these customer needs, we also need to plan for major construction work on the existing Penn Station infrastructure, much of which has been waiting for this moment to begin. Amtrak has a major rehabilitation of the East River tunnels coming very soon. This project will take tunnels out of service one at a time for a thorough rebuilding. Coupled with that, construction of the westbound bypass and eastbound reroute will be taking place in Harold interlocking, reducing conflicts and improving capacity through the busiest interlocking in North America for our sister railroad, Metro-North. And making it easier for our sister railroad, Metro-North, to provide service to and from Penn Station via its Penn Station Access project. While these projects ultimately improve service and reliability at Penn Station in the near term, they reduce capacity in and out of Penn, limiting the amount of service we can operate there and making our new Grand Central Madison station even more important to our customers. When writing the new schedules, we had to balance what our surveys showed, the limitations of infrastructure work, and the constraints of available infrastructure, train fleet, and employment. It required some out-of-the-box thinking and a complete rewrite of the timetable for efficiency, reliability, and convenient service intervals at each of our stations. Service to and from Brooklyn has been increased by 28%. We are running more trains more often on regularly spaced intervals, making all stops. Most trains will start and end at Jamaica on tracks 11 or 12. This allows us to avoid clumsy left turns in front of oncoming traffic and move more trains and riders to and from Manhattan more reliably. East of Jamaica, major branches will run a zoned service during rush hour. This means that one train would serve the outer segment of the stations along the branch, and the next train would serve the inner segment, with one or two stations in common that would allow customers to transfer between those trains if they want to, say, travel intra-island or use a different terminal. For instance, on the Babylon branch, one train serving Penn Station will make stops from Babylon to Wantor, and another train serving Grand Central would originate at Wantor and make stops to Rockville Center. If a Lindenhurst customer got on the Penn Station train and wanted to go to Grand Central Terminal, he or she could transfer at Wantor and eliminate the need to change at Jamaica. Of course, that same Lindenhurst customer could still change at Jamaica or wait for the next Grand Central opportunity directly from the station. The choice is there for them. This pattern occurs in multiple places around the railroad, allowing this type of convenient transfer opportunity and opening up many for the trips that suit you best.
Great, thank you, Charlie. So next we're going to have Sonny Zhang, who's the customer experience strategist, and he's going to run us through some of the schedules and just give us, kind of a understanding of how you guys can pick out some rides for yourselves. Sonny?
Thank you, Nick. We released the draft timetables for Grand Central Madison service and the entire railroad when Grand Central Madison opens on our website on June 2nd. You can find them now at new.mta.info/Grand Central Madison. Some of you may have looked at the PDF timetables before. You may have noticed that they are slightly different in format than the schedules we have today. They were designed to best balance the service patterns that we are running with the need to show all the trains on each segment. For those of you who would like to view your particular trip in detail, we've launched the Grand Central Future Trip Planner. You can access it at gcmtrips.mta.info. The goal of this trip planner is to make it easy for you to find the train times that will work for your journey between your stations at the time you will be traveling. For those of you who are familiar with the Long Island Railroad Train Time app, we hope that we find the user interface friendly and easy to use. I will demonstrate with a couple trips that we've talked about. First will be the example that Charlie used, which is from Lindenhurst to Penn Station. This is the morning rush hour service from Lindenhurst. As you can see, we're running a pretty frequent service with 4 or 5 trains per hour. Many of these, about half of these, will get you directly to Penn Station, and if that is your choosing, you may wait for one of these trains. The distribution of service is in line with the 45% number that we've found by our ridership survey. However, if you would choose not to wait for one of these Penn Station trains, there are alternatives available. Here's an example of the Wantaw transfer that was suggested. It's a 3-minute transfer in Wantaw. The train will be right behind you, and you can make this transfer and get a one-seat and avoid having to transfer at Jamaica. Or there are some alternatives for which you can transfer at Jamaica if that is your choice. These schedules also demonstrate the Zone Express pattern. As you can see, this train makes no stops from Wantaw to Jamaica, which is true of all trains on the eastern half of the Babylon branch at rush hour. The other example that I would like to show that clearly demonstrates the benefit of this new schedule is for a reverse commuter traveling from Manhattan, in this case Grand Central, to Ronkonkoma at the same time. Right now, if you're traveling to Ronkonkoma in the morning, there is a over 90-minute gap in service. As you can see, that gap no longer exists. We have options throughout the morning to get you to Ronkonkoma or wherever your destination may be on the main line in the morning rush hour. You can also see that roughly half the trains will operate from Grand Central in this case, while others will require a transfer at Jamaica. You can also see that throughout into the morning hours, we are operating 2 trains per hour, a direct benefit of the mainline second track and third track projects. These schedules will be loaded into the train time application once they are finalized later this fall. Until then, please feel free to plan your trip at gcmtrips.mta.info. Thank you, and back to Nick for the Q&A portion of tonight's presentation.
Great, Sonny. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone else who's on the call does as well. Yeah, we're going to start with our Q&A session now. So I know, we've been getting a lot of questions, which we're doing our best to answer. So, I've gone through here a bit and picked out a few that I think are, particularly relevant or, just cogent and well worded. So they're just easy for us to answer quickly while we're all sitting here. So I'm going to, pose some questions to John, and we'll go from there, and then we'll just keep taking questions from the chat, and we'll go around the room and do our best to, answer as much as we can. All right. So, John, one of the first questions I think that I've seen in the chat, and it's been floated quite a few times, and it was the same way last week, was when is Grand Central Madison opening?
Thanks, Nick. So the good news is that approximately 4 years ago, in 2018, we did a deep dive on this project, which had issues with delays related to external and internal circumstances, and we made a commitment to opening this, getting this project completed by the end of 2022, and we are on schedule to do that. And the good news is we're here with the gentleman who is getting that project past the finish line, Rob Troop. Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's just been a great effort, and I appreciate the work of everybody with the contractors, the MTA personnel, Long Island Railroad personnel, being able to work with them, particularly to, as a partner, to be able to start a physical characteristics training, which is one of the critical components to ensure a safe railroad.
And Rob, I just add to that, one of the things, anyone who's gone down into the project under Grand Central and seen it, even in the past, a year ago, they'd see that it would appear to be almost a completed station. But so much of that work in the last year is, related to testing. What goes into that?
So yeah, obviously the major construction standpoint, the civil work is all completed. A lot of the major, the electrical systems are in, but we have a significant amount of testing that we're doing. We have 29 separate systems that we're testing. Most of them are integrated with one another, and a lot of it deals with the fire and life safety issues, items like smoke extraction. And we have a highly developed smoke extraction system within the station terminal, within the concourse, and also within the tunnel environment itself. In addition, all the electrical systems, the building management systems to be able to operate effectively the escalators and all the ADA components of the system. So it's absolutely, we're really, focused on testing those critical elements for both the safety and security of the Long Island Railroad passengers.
Thanks, Robin. Just one more thing, Nick, before we jump into some other questions. The timing of this couldn't be better because of the work we need to get, Amtrak needs to do on the East River Tunnel, that's scheduled to start after the completion of this project.
Yeah, that work requires them to shut down tunnels, which
Yeah.
obviously, if you take a piece of it out, then you're going to, have the potential to reduce capacity. So this still allows us to sort of maintain the Long Island Railroad to maintain that same capacity while not going to Penn Station, be able to get into Manhattan. So it's a critical component of being able to improve that infrastructure as well as getting to Grand Central.
Yeah, and I don't know if some people listening at home remember what was described as the Summer of Hell, where it was a lead up to work that had to be done by Amtrak on the Penn Station tracks inside of Penn Station, where they had to take out tracks, certain platforms even, and the reduction of slots meant we had to have a different service, and to the point where we were running ferries and buses. But the bottom line is we ran the trains, and that's what people used. So and that was just for a couple of tracks. If we had lost half our capacity into the city, that would obviously be a dramatic reduction. So the bottom line is 2022, and it couldn't be at a better time. Nick?
Okay, thank you, John. That was great, and same to you, Rob. Another question that I saw come up quite a bit was why are there fewer trains into Penn Station? I think we touched on this a little bit with the geocoding analysis, but I'm going to pose this one to Charlie. So, Charlie, do you want to take this?
Sure. Thanks, Dick. A lot of it has to do with, as Rob Troop was talking about, I spoke about it earlier. Rob Free mentioned it as well. So with Amtrak doing that major rehabilitations in lines 1 and 2 and losing one at a time, it's a significant capacity loss. It actually, John brought up the Summer of Hell. It's actually a little worse than capacity loss in terms of that than the Summer of Hell was. So it's a marvelous opportunity that we now have a second Manhattan terminal. We're also 45% of our surveyed customers have the east side as a preferred location. So we wrote the schedules with that in mind. And once that work is complete, we will continue to evaluate ridership and see where additional service, God willing, that we have crews, equipment, and all the other stuff that we need, and we'll reevaluate once all that work is done.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Another question that's been coming in quite a bit is, can we just talk about Brooklyn service? And maybe this is for both Rob Free and Charlie. There's very few one-seat rides now, but a general increase in the level of service. So I don't know if you guys want to speak about it a little bit and how that was developed as such.
Right. So, this goes back to the left turns that we've been referring to. So when you have to take a train from the east and go to Brooklyn, or the same thing in the evening coming back out, it gets in the way of other service. So it kind of, we lose capacity. So years ago, there were many studies done. And the bottom line is it came down to a numbers game where the majority of our customers have Manhattan as their preferred destination. As Jano had said at yesterday's press conference, it's less than 10%. I think the number is closer to 7% of our customers utilize Brooklyn. Of that, the overall ridership, 2% have Brooklyn as a final destination. But it also gave us an opportunity in terms of the Brooklyn service, where currently, particularly in the reverse peak and the off peaks, we're kind of limited as to the amount of service that we can provide, mostly because once trains get into Brooklyn itself, we need to turn them very quickly and get them back out east for second trips. Well, now that we're running mostly between Jamaica and Atlantic Terminal itself, it gives us the opportunity now to add a lot of stops along the branch. And overall, we're seeing a 28% increase in Atlantic Terminal service. And in the off-peaks, we're going from half-hourly service to 3 trains an hour, generally speaking, 20-minute service. So it's a significant increase. And again, as things evolve and we continue to look at the ridership patterns and the operation itself, if it's warranted, we will be reviewing for increases in service to Atlantic Terminal.
Great, thank you. Rob, is there anything that you want to add, or you?
No, I think Charlie, in terms of a service planning perspective, shed a good light on it. I mean, even just to add on to from a planning perspective, the direct service between Atlantic Terminal and Jamaica allows us to become more efficient. It gives us better utilization from a rolling stock, right? We have a limited number of pieces of rolling stock, and also from a cruise perspective as well. We're able to use our crews much more efficiently with this service. And from an operational perspective, we just, to understand that, I mean, we could talk about this all night, but when trains go to Brooklyn everything else has to stop in its way, right? From a signal engineering perspective, there's things called circuits, which lock out, it's called route locking, which prevents any switches from being thrown in the vicinity, and this is vital. It ensures safety. We don't want people being able to throw switches on the trains. So that means trains within Jamaica have to wait for the Brooklyn trains to clear. And during peak service on the AM, for example, we use 0 through 6 track going west. So that's the majority of Jamaica infrastructure being utilized for peak service. So your opportunities, even within that, the peak service to operate through service to Brooklyn slows you down, right? So and going back to these circuits, when they clear, it takes time for the train to clear. And once it begins to clear, then you could start freeing up and display signals. So it's a really slow process by allowing this through service. It's both technical and just from a service planning perspective as well. It's inefficient.
Great, thank you, Rob. So one issue which, there have been a bunch of questions about it, and, I know it's been tossed around a lot in other forums, service to Port Washington, especially between Great Neck and Port Washington. So, again, this is for Rob, Free, and Charlie, and John, I think you may want to weigh in as well, but, what's happening there? Why the schedules the way they are? Some cases it's reduction of service. Let's go into that a little bit.
Well, there is no reduction in service. It's actually a significant increase in service. 70% increase in the AM peak. We didn't get all the infrastructure that we had hoped for over the intervening years, specifically in Port Washington itself. There were a couple of tracks that were not built that would have allowed us to run additional service out of Port Washington itself, which then establishes the stopping patterns along the branch. So dealing with the reality of not having those tracks, but an expanded Great Neck pocket, the patterns that we've written are based on the available infrastructure. So there are a couple more stops added to what some people have referred to as express trains. And, I get that we add a couple minutes to your trip in the morning and the evening. It's not the most convenient thing. But again, I go back to, we did the surveys, we watched the ridership trends, and we're trying to serve as many people as possible and give them options.
Great, thank you, Charlie. Ooh. John and Rob, is there anything that you'd like to add? All right, John, anything?
No, but look, I think Charlie covered the branch and any constraints that are there. The bottom line is there are more trains running on the Port Washington branch, and they're running to more places. I think it's important for people to understand, our customers and our future customers, that what this project delivers is a brand new schedule, top to bottom, and it makes more sense throughout the day, gives more opportunities to go from more places to more places. And we don't build schedules on assumptions for one customer who rides one train. We work with that. We want to provide that one customer and all our customers as many opportunities. That's what this schedule does. There's no more bunching of trains that make no sense. There's steady service on all our branches throughout the day. And what we see, and we see it on New York City Transit, on our subways as well, we see changing patterns of travel. And what people are gravitating towards is the regularity of travel. And so a focus on a single train in the AM peak that is not leaving a station at the same time it did 20 years ago or 1 month ago is very different from our commitment to have as much service as we can, considering the infrastructure that's available.
My mic was off, sorry. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. So, yeah. Did you? have anything that you wanted to add on that? I think you kind of went back in.
Well, the one thing, that specific to Port Washington on the infrastructure, if you look at the third track area, there's where we, added a track to a very busy line, or the double track area, which is out in Suffolk and the mid-Suffolk yard. All these infrastructure projects were done to allow for this more service. In the case of Port Washington, because we were not able to get the property that was a parking area in order to build the track that was needed to provide for more service, then we can't provide that service. In the case of the main line, we have stations like New Hyde Park that are growing from 56 trains a day to 94 trains a day. That can only be done because of the infrastructure that was built to increase that capacity. It's the same as this overall project, which is increasing capacity at the greatest bottleneck of all, which was getting into the island of Manhattan, where we're doubling it. So you can, take that and apply it to the Port Washington branch, and I think you can understand why we have a constraint as far as capacity.
Okay, sure. Rob, go ahead.
Nick, I think it's important to realize, and Charlie touched on it, that there's significant infrastructure impediments on the Port Wash branch, right? We talked about Port Wash Yard and track capacity, but there's also about 4.25 miles of single track on the branch. And even with that being said, we were able to increase AM peak service by 70%, and on the PM, 43%. Those are staggering numbers, consider the infrastructure limitations that we have. And in the off-peak period, we've always had half an hour service on the branch. So other branches didn't have that luxury. Other branches are just beginning to catch up to the Port Wash branch in terms of off-peak service in providing this service. So I think as far as the Port Washington branch, there is pretty robust service currently, and even more so as we implement the Grand Central Madison service.
Okay, great. Yeah, I appreciate all your perspectives, and I think so do our, all of our attendees. Why don't we turn more to the terminal itself? Jen and Rob Troop, I'd like to turn to both of you. I wish I had two heads. You're on opposite sides of me. Can you just talk to me a little bit about like the accessibility features, the amenities, when they're going to be available, where they're going to be, all that good stuff? So I'm not sure who wants to go first, but.
So first, I'll just talk briefly about retail. When we open at the end of this year, there will not be any retail opportunities in that space, though we do encourage customers before arriving into Grand Central Madison to utilize any of the retail and dining opportunities that are presented to them in the Grand Central main concourse. That being said, in 2023, we are looking to having possible some kiosks, some retail kiosk opportunities, with retail slated for 2024.
Cool, great. Yeah, so why don't we talk about the accessibility features a little bit? I know that's, always top of mind now, so you want to give us a breakdown. And Rob, feel free to jump in, too, if there's something that you feel we missed.
Well, from the stations department perspective, we will have our ambassadors like we have at our other terminals at Atlantic, Jamaica, and Penn Station. And these ambassadors will be able to assist through our Call Ahead program, assist our mobility impaired customers to help them get throughout the terminal, as well as to connect them to Metro North if they're looking to connect to Metro North or New York City Transit. Likewise, our partners at Metro North, they will be able to assist a customer, mobility impaired, coming in through the street level, through the main concourse, and they will get them down to our terminal.
Okay. So then also about the terminal itself, approximately how long is it going to take me when I get off on the platform to get either to street level, to the concourse, to the rest of Grand Central, where the, I guess the Metro North area is? Could you give me, is it possible to give me, kind of some breakdowns on that?
Well, I think it really all depends on where you're sitting in the train and where you're looking to exit, right? I mean, this is it's a vast campus. And so I would say, to be fair, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, depending on, again, where you're coming off, what mode of vertical transportation you're using, and what your egress and final destination point is.
And I would add that because of the multiple entrances that we have along Madison Avenue, when you say that, where you get on the train is going to dictate a lot of that, hopefully our regular commuters and regular riders will, develop those habits and those patterns to be able to take advantage of the number of exits that we have leading up to Madison Avenue and also into Grand Central as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So I've seen a couple questions come in about this, and I think it's important. It's back to the service aspect. So Charlie and Rob Free, I wish I'll be looking at you too. Why are there no additional trains on the Montauk branch? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. The equipment situation in terms of the diesel fleet has not changed. So there is no additional equipment. So what we did is, particularly on the Montauk branch in the peak periods, service tends to be clumpy. So we made a concerted effort to space it out a little better, to provide better opportunities, if you will. Additionally, we will maintain the dual mode service into Penn Station that we operate today. But unfortunately, with Grand Central Madison, though that same equipment does not fit into Grand Central Madison.
Okay, great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. So, and another one that came up actually that I would like to turn to Rob Troop for is, what's the timeline for the East River tunnels and their makeover? Well, probably more than a makeover, but all that work and how's that going to impact all of our service plan? I could turn to Charlie about that, but we'll start with just the point about the East River Tunnel construction.
So again, I don't have the exact timeline in front of me, but we intend to start the Amtrak is looking at designing the tunnels, starting the work in 2024. A lot of what we're doing is the eastbound reroute and the westbound bypass to be able to complete that work. That'll be significant for the ability for them to manage traffic better through there. And Nick, what was the second part of your question on that?
I think the second part was more related to when that work is completed, how are our schedules going to change? This is probably for Charlie, but how our schedules are going to change, if they're going to change, are we going to be able to add ridership, that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry, you said post. So post, we're going to do what we always do, and that's track ridership, track operational trends, what's working, what's not working. If there's a need for increased Penn Station service, of course, we will, endeavor to increase service there. But it's really kind of a wait and see, see how the ridership spreads itself out and where people wind up going. Some people in the beginning may be a little trepidatious. I've been going, to Penn for 20, 25, 30 years, and suddenly they may find themselves going into Grand Central, a few weeks, days, months in, and actually prefer it. So we will monitor ridership and operational impacts and take it from there.
Great, thank you.
Nick, so question coming in regarding Grand Central. Access up to One Vandy, which is a brand-new building, beautiful building. Maybe Rob, or is there access points up to One Vanderbilt, the brand-new building with lots and lots of employment opportunities?
There's a specific entrance to One Vanderbilt from the East Side Access
Okay, yes, because we have a question here because somebody is working in that building, and yes, you will be able to walk directly up there. Another question also related to work near Grand Central is access to JP Morgan Chase, which is not constructed yet, but it's under construction. Do we, is there a specific access point up to that building?
The 47th Street exit is probably the most perfect direct route to JP Morgan Chase, and conveniently that is located near our ticket office. And if you are boarding the train, that would be on the tail end of the train.
Okay, thanks. And then another question related to work in that area. This is actually from one of our Manhasset customers taking the Port Washington branch. So it's good news for this person that it's going to Grand Central and many more. 50th and Madison, you're going in that direction. What's the northernmost? Is it the JP Morgan Chase exit?
Right now is the JP Morgan Chase exit at 47th Street.
So you're going up at 47th Street, a 3-block walk to 50th Street. Okay.
Without the use of a subway in between from Penn, so that works out
Yes.
perfectly, right?
Okay, that's good. And, just seeing a question about, people from the Port Washington branch who are excited to go to Grand Central, which I imagine many will be, I just see, again, a few more of these Port Washington questions coming in, and some of them very excited about Grand Central, others still asking about the AM peak. So I think we should just jump back into just the number of trains that are going into Manhattan in the AM peak. If my count is correct, there will be 17 trains on the Port Washington branch going into Manhattan in the AM peak, which is more than currently is the case, which I think is closer to 10.
That's correct, John. Currently, it's 10.
Okay, so just to be clear, there are many more trains going into Manhattan on the Port Washington branch than in the existing condition. Those trains will go to both Grand Central and Penn Station, split evenly, Charlie?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. And if you were to go on one of those trains and want to go to the alternate terminal, say if you're on a Grand Central bound train, you will switch at Woodside. Is that correct?
You could switch at Woodside, Great Neck's another opportunity, and Bayside.
And Bayside. Okay, and just again, since the questions are since we had a few questions on Port Washington, one specifically, like why did you not build the extra track at Port Washington? This was denied by the town. This is not us saying we didn't want to do it. To be very clear, the town of North Hempstead rejected our application to build. We had this in the capital program. This is something we wanted to do, just like double track, third track, Mid-Suffolk Yard, where trains park so that they are better situated to run the system in the morning, the Massapequa pocket track, and the Great Neck pocket track. So, these are ones we've always called them the East Side Access Readiness Projects. And so, yes, of course, we wanted to do it. We were not able to do it because of parking spaces, but we are still able to provide more service to the two terminals. Nick?
Great. Thank you, John. That was excellent. I don't know what else to say. It really was. I don't know. I think at this point, I mean, there are still a bunch of questions, and I don't think we're going to be able to get to them because we have approximately 4 or 5 minutes. So, well, John, you
Well,
wanna say
I would
something?
just say, I do see a couple of questions, and I know we had this last time, as far as the, what is the service zone? It sounds like it's pretty straightforward, but for people at home is this the same price as one would pay to get to Penn Station as they will to get to Grand Central? Rob Free, the man who makes that decision.
So I'm getting blamed for the fare structure. Okay. Yes, it would be the same fare as going to Penn Station, what we call Zone 1. So it would be similar to that. Depending where you're coming from would be the price of the ticket. But
And City Ticket also runs to Grand Central, too. Important to note.
And Nick, before we run out of time, and there are a few questions in here related to Metro North service, and it's, extraordinary that there are people, Metro North people, who understand and appreciate that this is something that they will benefit from as well. The transfer opportunities at Grand Central, as soon as later this year, will be available. You're going to be, we have already heard from many, many people who want to get to, say, JFK Airport, and it's a bit of a schlep. And now they will be able to go to Grand Central, switch to a Long Island Railroad train in the same concourse, right, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what this project makes it really exciting, is connecting these two agencies together, Metro North Long Island Railroad, and connecting these two regions together.
That's good. And I think, you know, one of the things I said at the beginning of this Q&A session is that this is very much about opportunities in the future, customers that are not getting out of their cars and using mass transit. They will use mass transit when it is a reliable service that has a schedule that they can count on. This is what is delivered in this project, and it's a reliable schedule that will be, I think, enjoyed, appreciated by people who are in both Metro North territory and Long Island Railroad territory. And in those territories, very important, are people who are in New York City, in the Bronx. We have robust service at Fordham and other stations, incredible amount of ridership, particularly going north. We are seeing the same growth, Charlie, I think, in Queens stations, and this provides so much more service there that they have asked for.
Yeah, you know, that's part of the trends post-COVID that we've been seeing. Very nice increases in those markets, if you will. And that's, you know, that's the reason for the additional stops in Queens and Brooklyn as well. And that's where the nice reverse peak service now coming out of Brooklyn is married with the third track project, just opens up new markets, Mineola, Hicksville, so on and so forth, for those people, Queens included.
On a personal note, my brother would no longer have had to steal my mom's car to go to Fordham if we had this, so I'll but I think we're out of time. It's just about 7 o'clock, so I want to thank everyone here for taking time out of, you know, their night and their day to talk about service to Grand Central Madison. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in tonight and, you know, interacting with us in the Q&A, submitting your questions ahead of time for us to answer during that last 30 minutes in the Q&A. And then, yeah, just, you know, please stay engaged with us. We have 2 more of these meetings. It's really important to hear from you about, you know, what you like, what you don't like, what you think could be better. So next Thursday at 6 p.m., it's the same exact thing. And then we're going to do, as I said, the 2-hour public comment meeting where it's going to be from 6 to 8. So looking forward to seeing you then. And until then, have a great night. And John?
And yeah, I just want to add, Nick, the questions come in. I think we'll have a few more minutes to make sure we try to answer your questions. I see a lot of questions have been answered online. As Nick said, we're going to do this, and we'll continue to be out there talking about this service and all the benefits. So very exciting, and I thank you for joining us.